Well, hey there, everyone. It's Mrs. Acero, and I'm here to teach your class about writing your conclusion paragraph. Before we get started, I'd just like to introduce myself to you. My name is Mrs. Acero, and I have an online teaching store called All in One Middle School. I was a teacher for 34 years, and teaching language arts was my passion. This lesson is a mini lesson, so it's concise. You'll be very clear on what you need to know by the end. This presentation, along with guided notes, are available to print on my TPT store, and I'll leave that link for you in the video description. If you're using the guided notes, you should fill them in whenever you see this icon. If your teacher lets you work with a partner, you will turn and talk in certain portions. I hope you find this helpful. Let's dive in. So, when we're learning new material, it's always good to have a mentor text to refer to. For this lesson, we will examine the song Gaston from Beauty and the Beast. We use this in all the other essay writing lessons. I do have one on writing your thesis, your intro, and your body paragraphs. And we will continue to use the song today to write our conclusion paragraph. If you haven't yet viewed the lessons on writing your thesis, intro, and body paragraphs, you might want to go back and start with those. Your teacher might also want you to use a different mentor text. If so, when you take notes, just substitute in what your teacher tells you to use. So you're going to pause now and watch the video of Gaston. It's about 3.5 minutes long. The link is in the video description, and you can also grab a copy of the lyrics there to help you as well. We will discuss the video a little bit later on in the slideshow. So pause my video now and watch Gaston. Okay, so why is a conclusion paragraph important? There's no doubt that you have written essays, but if you have not, writing essays is something you will need to do throughout your academic career. You'll want a method to easily write paragraphs so that you don't have to struggle every time you are tasked to write an essay. Your conclusion paragraph is a way to sum up your evidence and bring your essay to an effective close. The conclusion paragraph should leave the reader with a strong feeling and some sort of impression. So, your conclusion paragraph job is to leave an impression on your reader. So you need to get on board with writing your conclusion. When you write an essay, think of it like building a house. There are many steps to building a house. You obviously have to have certain parts before the others. You have to build the foundation, which is your thesis and intro paragraph, and the basic structure and walls, which could be your body paragraphs. Now it is time to put on the roof and finish it up. Today's goal is to understand that a solid conclusion paragraph will finish off your essay, bring it to a logical closing, and leave your reader with an impression. So let's talk about a recipe of a good conclusion paragraph. And now if you see here, we have guided notes. So if you're using them, now's the time to start filling them in. When you write a conclusion paragraph, it will help to have a recipe, which is a list of things that it should contain to make your essay flow in a logical manner. There are some different ways to do this, but here is one solid recipe that you can follow to build your essay. Your transition phrase, a summary of the main points, restate your thesis, and your concluding statement. Okay, so let's talk about part one, which is the transition phrase. The transition phrase lets your reader know that you are bringing your essay to a close. There are many different ways to do this, but here are some that you can use. To conclude, in conclusion, in summary, to summarize, all in all, in a word, on the whole, sum it up, overall, and all things considered. At this point, you want to use that transition phrase and turn it into a sentence by referring back to your claim. In our example essay on Gaston, our claim is that he is rude. Therefore, you'll want to refer back to that. It's a good idea to use different wording and not to keep repeating the same words over and over. That sounds what I call robotic, like a robot. So, an idea, you can look for synonyms for your claim. Example, I'm going to use the transition in a word, and I'm going to use the synonym brash. So now you're going to try it. Think of a friend or a family member and one of their character traits, okay, whether they're dependable, trustworthy, honest, friendly, okay? And then come up with a few examples why you are saying that. Then choose a conclusion transition phrase to sum it up. So here's an example. My friend John is dependable. He always texts me to remind me about practice. He is never late when we have plans. You can count on him to pick his sister up from the school bus each day. All in all, John is someone you can depend on. Okay, so pause my video and turn and talk. Okay, let's talk about the conclusion recipe part 2, which is a summary of your main points. So you want to summarize your main points from your essay by going through these steps. First, look at your reasons that you use to prove your claim. In the essay we started on Gaston, those reasons were that the way he fights and how conceited he is, and that would prove that he is rude. Okay? Then you want to summarize the reasons. Do not give every little bit of information, just give a brief summary. Again, use different wording. You don't want to keep repeating yourself, but you want to say the same thing in a way that doesn't sound robotic. Don't be afraid to elaborate just a bit with some new wording, but don't change the overall meaning of what you have already written. Never, 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 never introduce new ideas in the conclusion paragraph. Doing this throws off the entire essay. And it's okay for this section to be short. A few sentences is enough. Okay, let's do an example. Here is a summary of the main points for the Gaston essay. Reminder, our thesis is by examining how he fights and how conceited he is, it is clear that Gaston is rude. Okay, so here is my summary with my transition phrase coming first. All right, in a word, rash. Gaston is an individual who fights at any chance he gets. He even seems to be proud of the fact that his belligerence makes him feared by many. Gaston is also extremely arrogant. He is so full of himself and seems to thrive on bragging about his looks, strength, and size. Okay, so I just kind of summed up how he fights, how conceited he is, and using some different words such as belligerence and arrogant. So now you're going to try it. Go back to what you said about your friend at the beginning of this lesson. Summarize the information that you gave by rewording it. Start with the transition phrase. So here's the reminder. My friend John is dependable. He always texts me to remind me about practice. He is never late. When we have plans, you can count on him to pick his sister up from the school bus each day. All in all, John is someone you can depend on. So here's my summary. In a word, reliable. John is someone who will never let you down. He is there for the people he cares about, and you can always depend on him. Okay, so really what I did is I just took all my evidence and I shortened it. So turn and talk. You're going to pause my video and summarize your evidence about your friend. Okay. Let's talk about our conclusion recipe part 3, which is where you restate your thesis. Your thesis is the backbone of the essay, so it's important to remind your readers about it in the conclusion. Again, you want to reword it. Repeating the same thing over and over again sounds robotic. Be careful, however, not to change the meaning of what you are saying. Our thesis about Gaston, I know I keep repeating it, but I want to remind you, by examining how he fights and how conceited he is, it is clear that Gaston is rude. So we want to reword it. We want to say the same thing with different words. All right, so here's an example. Gaston is an ill-mannered and rude character, evidenced by his non-stop brawling and arrogant attitude. So we're saying the same exact thing here that we are. And again, using some synonyms is going to help with this. All right, now you're going to try it. Turn and talk to your partner. You're going to reword each of the following theses, which is the plural of thesis, okay? By examining how much homework she gives and how she is always scolding us, it is clear that Mrs. Jones is an unfair teacher. By examining how many songs she's written and how her concerts sell out, it is clear that Taylor Swift is a gifted musician. Pause my video and turn and talk and reword these two theses. Okay, conclusion recipe part 4, concluding statement. The last words of your essay are vitally important. You want to include a strong, original concluding sentence. This will leave an impression on your reader. Writing the end is not acceptable in an essay. It's something that maybe you did back in elementary school. You don't do that anymore. The reader will know it's over because of what you've written. Okay, so I have some different ways to do this. There are many different ways. I just gave you a few here. So you could leave the reader with a question like, why on earth would a smart young woman like Belle be interested in someone like this? You can have a call to action. It's time to let people like Gaston know that their behaviors are not acceptable. A warning, you'll never get what you want from life with behavior like this. A prediction, Gaston might have lived had his attitude and actions not been so horrifying. In case you don't know, Gaston does die at the end. Okay, try it. Let's think about how your day was yesterday. Create a conclusion for it. Use the prompts to help, okay? So you're going to start with, to conclude, my day was awful. My day was fantastic, whatever it was, okay? Give two main reasons why your day was what you said in the statement above. Then you want to come up with a strong concluding statement about the day, right? Pause my video and turn and talk. Okay, now it's time to put it all together. Now that you have the components, you'll need to put it all together. You might need to add a bit to smooth it out and make it sound like a coherent paragraph. So use the color code to help you. So for those of you who have guided notes, you're going to need 4 different color highlighters or color pencils to underline or however you want to do it. So I have my transition phrase in yellow, the summary of the main points in green. I restated my thesis in blue and my conclusion. Okay. And it's always good to read it out loud at the end because you might realize that you need to add a little something to it to pull it together. All right, so here we go. In a word, brash. Gaston is an individual who fights at any chance he gets. He even seems to be proud of the fact that his belligerence makes him feared by many. Gaston is also extremely arrogant. He is so full of himself and seems to thrive on bragging about his looks, strength, and size. Gaston is an ill mannered and rude character, evidenced by his nonstop brawling and arrogant attitude. Why on earth would a smart young woman like Belle be interested in someone like this? Okay, now time to put it into action. If you are currently writing an essay, take these action steps to create your conclusion paragraph, your transition phrase, your summary of your main points, restate your thesis, and your concluding statement. And that is a wrap. Be sure to tune back in for more Teach My Class episodes. You can also check out First Chapter Friday on my YouTube channel, where I'll read the first chapters of my favorite middle school novels. I hope to see you soon.